Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Q&A support webinar on personality types. My name's Sheila Granger, and if you can just type in the chat box that you can hear me okay before we make a start. It's always good to know that the technology is working and that you can hear me okay. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to start it off by typing in the chat box. So if you can just type in the chat box that you can hear me okay, that would be great. Hello, Lynn. Nice to see you online. Thank you for letting me know. So I can see there's not many of us on today's call because I know a lot of people, they get the material. It's pretty self-explanatory, and they pick up the recording of this later on. So, it will come out to a replay. So those of you who do pick it up on a replay, please do email me if you have any questions to think@sheilagrange.com, and I'm very happy to advise you in any way that I can. So I'm going to get straight into content then on this, because there's a few case studies that I want to share with you that I didn't put in the training material as such, because in a way it's difficult to cover all the whys and wherefores in a training manual on something like this, because of course all our clients are very different and very unique, which was really most of the point that I wanted to make in this training. We need to recognise with personality types partly what our own personality type is, and also, what is the personality type of our clients. And once we know those two things, we can, build rapport better, because we can really jump into the shoes of that person and have a greater understanding of where they come from and what their motivators are and what worries them. And we can design our therapy then to much more suit that person and their personality type. And if we do that, we get better results. It's also recognising our own personality type, because, if we, for example, believe it or not, I'm a supportive personality type. Some people might think I'm more of an interactive one because I do presentations and I'm quite chatty, but my natural default is actually to be the supportive, the one that sort of sits back a little bit. And I like routine and harmony, and want everybody to feel okay. And sometimes with a personality type like that, if I get to be talking to a CEO of a company, then for me to be that, going in, oh, how are you? Is everything okay? That really isn't going to cut it with the CEO. They just want to know, what do I want? What's in it for them? How much time of theirs I'm going to take up? And what solution am I offering? So we've got to kind of get straight to the point. So recognising, who we are and who the personality type is that we're dealing with, we need to alter our communications to get better results and actually build better rapport. So I'm hoping that makes sense a little bit. So I'm just going to move the wrong way on this thing. So being aware of our own self-style and that of others. And the diagram that you've got in your training manuals, which describes the different types, how people tend to act, what are their primary drivers, what are their personal strengths, what are they comfortable with, what are their personal wants, they can all start to give you clues of how we should interact with those people. So, if this is something that's completely new to you, in an area that you've not really looked at before, all I would suggest is that the diagram that you've got in your manual, which has the characteristics of each style, every client that you work with from now, what I would suggest is that you have a look at that diagram and then start to really work with what are the characteristics of that style? Now, we've got to bear in mind that we've all got a little bit of everything. Nobody's just one thing and nothing else. And we can, in different circumstances, we can dial up our personality style. So, I dial up my personality style to be much more interactive when I have to perhaps give a presentation or do some group work, or, even come on this webinar. I dial up that interactive side of me. So it's not that it's not there. It's just that it's probably not my natural default. The other thing that I notice with clients is when they're put in a position that they're not in that natural default position, they're not actually working in their natural style, it can create all kinds of issues for people. It can create, massive fatigue, it can create a disease, that people, if they can dial it up for so long, but if we're not actually in our usual personality type, or if we're working out of our usual personality type, a lot of the time it can cause a lot of issues for us. So, you might, want to spend some time looking at, when you look at those, which one do you relate to as a person? What would you say you are? Now, the one that I've used to describe these characteristics of each style is the DISC personality styles. So there's a lot of different work out there about different personality styles and how they've put them together. And the one that I've based mine on is on something called a DISC model. Now, that DISC model, you can pay for, through the DISC model, you can pay to get your own unique personality assessment done, which will tell you exactly which bit you fit into. But you can probably work out yourself from reading those traits and those descriptors, which bit do you sit really comfortably with? And you probably know from there where it is you are. And we can also take a pretty good guess at our clients from how they interact with us, what is their natural style. So I wanted to this morning just talk you through a few case studies, just so you can hopefully, get a little bit of a better understanding of it and see how I've really started to use it a little bit more within the work that I do. So the first guy I'd like to tell you about is a gentleman called Nick, and Nick is a business owner. He is a CEO of a company, his own company. It's a multi-million-pound company, and he wants to lose weight. So he'd actually found me through somebody else who'd been advertising Virtual Gastric Band, and he'd sort of gone back to source. Who is this person who's created this? And, this person lives near me. I'd like to go and see her. So he wanted to lose weight, and for the first, perhaps a week or so, he did really well, and then he dropped off the bandwagon. And he's a very direct kind of person. He definitely fitted into that dominant characteristic trait. He was very competitive. He was adventurous. He was very much results orientated. Of course, he had to be for the role that he had, and to have got his business to where it had got to. But when you look at, the personality traits then of that dominant style, his personal wants are control. He needs control over things. And any preferred task that he does needs to be challenging. And his personal fear is losing. Now, I sat and pondered him for a while, really, because, on some level he was following instruction, on some level he wasn't. But, when we look at, motivating people to do something or not to do something, we're all motivated by, we're either going towards pleasure or we're going away from pain. Part of the Virtual Gastric Band programme, does a little bit of that. It, gives people a little glimpse into the future if they don't do anything. And it also builds in motivators for them, how they're going to feel when they've done it and how they're going to feel when they've achieve their results. So, you know, we are using towards and away motivators within a lot of our hypnosis programs. But thinking about this particular gentleman, you know, his preferred task was to have a challenge. That is his personality type. So what I did with him is everything that I did was very direct suggestions to begin with, because that is what he responds to. I also built in that this weight loss journey for him was going to be a challenge. That was going to be his next big challenge, and almost got him to decide himself how he would address that challenge. What was he going to do? And, you know, what actions was he going to take? And simply by taking it from that point of view and creating it as a challenge for him, not a challenge for me, because, you know, sometimes with clients we think, you know, the challenge is with us to how we're going to get them to do this thing. But really the challenge is within himself, isn't it? And because his personality type responds to challenge, then he took that challenge on board. And that was going to be his challenge. Because, you know, generally we want to say that, you know, oh, hypnosis is going to remove the challenges and it's going to be so much easier to stick to things and, you know, to do this subconsciously. With him, to get the result, it had to be about a challenge. And, you know, with this type of personality type, you know, their biggest fear is of loss. Or the embarrassment that loss might cause. You know, if he can't do something because of this weight issue and it's in front of perhaps other CEOs who he hangs around with, this is a huge embarrassment to them. You know, the last thing he wants is to, you know, be embarrassed in situations. So when I was using the you know, towards pleasure, away from pain during the session, you know, I actually tuned in and focused in on the embarrassment of not being able to do this. And, you know, so that was the thing that was going to make him go and do it, accept the challenge, crack on. So those two things made a big difference with him. And that was purely from looking at what is this guy's personality type? And what are the drivers within this personality type? Now, I probably could have, after a number of sessions, maybe worked out what they were, but it wasn't something that he directly came to me with. You know, what he said was that, you know, yeah, there was things that he wanted to do and things that he had coming up and he was going on holiday, but that really wasn't the driver. It wasn't enough of a driver for him to do anything about it. And often, you know, the things that our clients tell us that are their motivators maybe aren't their motivators at all. They might be on some level, but they're not the thing that's going to drive it forward. Whereas if we start looking at the, you know, the different characteristics of the personality types as well, and use some of those drivers, then we can probably get better results. I'm hoping that makes sense. So, Lynn, can you just type in the chat box if that seems to make sense to you? Excellent, thank you, Lynn. Lynn, just a quick question. Are you the Lynn near me? Are you Soup Lynn near me? Or are you Lynn across the pond? Across the pond. All right, okay, great. I hope you're doing okay, Lynn, now. Okay, so moving on to the next case study then. I want to talk about a gentleman called Rob. Now, Rob is a guy who I've been seeing regarding depression issues. And he threw lots of red herrings in to begin with. So he said that, you know, he was depressed because he was going back to issues that had happened a while ago. He'd been out on his motorbike one day, and his friend who he was out with died in an accident on this run out on the motorbikes a number of years previously. And he said that, you know, he'd done everything to try and save this friend, but he just couldn't save him. And he'd sort of lived with this all the time, that he couldn't save him. He'd also went back to, he was telling me about when he was 17 and he had a girlfriend, and this girlfriend a few months later turned out to be, told him that, you know, she was, you know, more fond of the opposite sex. And he took this as a big emotional hit, that it was something that was wrong with him. And there was a third thing as well, and I'm trying to rack my brains now to what that third thing was. So basically, he told me all these things to why, you know, he was depressed, but none of that was in the current day, in the present day. He was also a very, you know, a very quiet guy. He, you know, he was clearly caring. He was unsure whether his marriage was going to survive. Didn't know if he wanted out of his marriage. Didn't know if he wanted out of his job. You know, his head was a bit of a shed, as I would describe it, really. My professional opinion is your head is a little bit of a shed. But over a period of time, you know, what he was really, when I looked at his personality type, you know, he was of the supportive personality type. So, you know, his primary drive was stability, and, you know, he got himself into a position really in his life where it wasn't very stable. You know, he wasn't sure whether his marriage would work out, or even if he wanted it to. He wasn't that happy in his job. So, you know, this, you know, little supportive personality type, you know, was stressed out because, you know, he wanted, you know, his personal wants, if you like, of that type are routine and harmony, and he doesn't want to upset anybody, and he wants to be supportive of everybody. But himself, within himself, he was in complete conflict of not knowing what he wanted. And, you know, ultimately, for this personality type, if he's going to, you know, think about a divorce, then how is that going to create harmony? So he's way out of his comfort zone here. So, you know, and you know, what he wanted to do was like accommodate everybody's wants and needs. So, you know, he didn't want to upset anybody, and you know, so he really just hid away. His depression was, I'll just hide away from the world because I've got these wants and needs myself. He wasn't quite sure what they were, but he just knew that he was really, you know, a bird in a cage, where this bird's feathers had completely dropped off. You know, he was in a really dark place with himself, but then on some level bringing up all these other things that might have caused this. And, you know, when we drill down on it, you know, his only issue really was nothing to do with the past. His issue was about in the now. And he'd had an affair with this guy, and he, you know, was unsure whether he wanted to stay with his wife. But of course, for his personality type, you know, he you know, his personal fear is some sudden change, and you know, he measures his own personal worth by being compatible with people and the contributions that he makes to people, and making sure everybody else's world is okay. So, you know, for this personality type, going through this kind of inner turmoils, you know, should I do this? Should I do that? You know, it really couldn't get his head around it. So with him, it had to be something that was gradual. It couldn't be an overnight change, and because otherwise that would really stress this personality type out even more. So I really just suggested to him that, well, do you have to make any decisions about anything? You know, I really took the pressure off by saying, you don't have to make any decisions right now. Now, of course, for his wife, that probably wasn't the best thing because, you know, she's sitting there thinking, well, is this marriage going to work out or not? But for where he was and his headspace, it would be better if he doesn't have to make a decision right now, because it immediately starts to relieve the stress. So we did some stress relief work, and everything was done, not piling too much on each session, just a gradual shift. And you know, this, what we've moved on to with this guy now is he actually wants to start his own business, or is thinking about starting his own business, doing IT. So all we've done is gradually start to look at the other avenues. His depression has improved massively. He still has days where he feels a little bit off kilter, but you know, he is more in harmony with himself. He's you know, doing things gradually. He's not making any major decisions straight away, so that makes him feel better. You know, he's more in control. I also had to do a lot of you know, confidence building, because you know, he does want to be somebody who, you know, wants to make contribution, you know, wants routine, harmony, wants everybody to feel okay. And so it was getting him to recognise that he's still doing that as a person right now, in, you know, in his job, in other areas of his life. So it's building up his confidence, but working within that personality type instead. You know, if I'd driven him down an avenue of being really direct, do this, then that would have just stressed this personality type out even more. So again, it's you know, looking at what type of personality type he is, what motivators have we got to play with, what limitations have we got, and then very much tailoring it to him. Lynn, again, if you could just let me know that that makes sense to you. Excellent, thank you. And then finally, the other lady I wanted to talk to you about, and this only came to a conclusion actually last week. And this was a lady for weight loss, a lady called Nicola. And she, you know, was kind of your typical weight loss client, really. She'd put weight on in the past, she'd lost it in the past, she'd, but, you know, she'd gone through a rough time. She'd had breast cancer 9 years ago, turned to food for comfort. And as it turns out, you know, she's in a relationship that she doesn't think she wants to stay in, but, you know, wants to stay there for the sake of the children. And, but, you know, she does want to become slimmer. You know, the motivator's there, but she knew she had to kind of change her mindset to that. And she was a big emotional eater. And it sounded as though her partner was a great saboteur as well, for whatever reasons he was doing that. But again, I looked at, you know, what is this lady's personality type? And, you know, she was really the conscientious type. And one of the things I'd said to her was that there was all these areas in her life that, you know, or she felt she was out of control in so many areas of her life. But the one thing that changed everything for her was that I said to her, so this is one thing that you could control then. You know, there's all these things in your life that you can't control or don't feel that you can control. But this is one area of your life that you and you only can control. And it became a bit of a game changer for her. So having had a few weeks of being very hit and miss, she suddenly did take that control back again. And she's really surprised herself in that her partner, who is, you know, keeps saying, I'm going to the sweet shop, do you want me to go and get you any sweets? You know, she feels now as though, yeah, this is what I can control, and nobody can stop me doing that. I also got her to start, you know, worrying less about everything. You know, when you look at the personality type of that conscientious type, you know, one of the things they need to work on is worrying less about everything. And you know, she was a little bit similar to Rob, the previous case study. Really, is that, you know, she was worrying about things that hadn't even happened. So, you know, what if we do split up, and you know, what will my children think about me, and what if we end up living in an area where they're not with their friends and they're with, you know, types that might lead them down the wrong path. What's going to happen then? So, you know, she needed to really work on worrying less about all those things, and, you know, really just taking things a step at a time, and not necessarily having to make a decision on anything now. You know, her personal wants are standards. You know, she wants to have a certain standard. So, you know, we worked on what would those standards look like for her. And, you know, her primary drive is about being correct, which was why, of course, you know, if she went down the divorce route and, you know, she was criticised for that, you know, have I been correct in that? So again, teasing out really, you know, which bits of this person's personality type have we got to play with that they're going to really resonate with? Because with any therapy that we do, it's about it resonating with the person. And the more we can jump into the shoes of that particular personality type, the more what we do will resonate with them. As opposed to, you know, before I did a lot of the personality stuff, you know, I was really, working from intuition, which is good. You know, we do pick things up intuitively from people. There is sometimes somehow an angel in the room that tells us what to say, and it seems to be right. But a lot of the time we're throwing a whole load of suggestions and tools at somebody and hoping something that is going to stick. And, you know, if we throw enough, hopefully one thing will stick. But with this type of approach, we can take a little bit of a step back from that and, you know, a little bit more of a clear structure and plan to how we're going to address the personality type that's behind this. So I'm hoping that makes sense. So there were the few, you know, case studies that I really wanted to share with you that seemed a bit difficult for me to write out, if you like. But any questions at all? Lynn, do you have any questions with any of that, or does it make sense between what I've talked about this morning and, you know, what was already in the guide for you? Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Thank you, Lynn. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes then, just to see if any questions, any specifics, because I'll very happily answer those. And if not, I'll draw it to a close, and then people can just contact me in the future if there is anything that you know, they want to sort of bring up, or specific case studies that, you know, they're looking for answers to. You know, I'm always very happy to help. I always like to say that I'm never the font of all knowledge, but I have obviously got, you know, hundreds of hours of client experience. So the thing is that people probably aren't going to come across something that I haven't already faced myself on some level. You know, we can brainstorm, you know, what's the best approach, really. And Lynn, I hope you're feeling better. Just type in the chat box if you're feeling better. We have a lot in common. And please, Lynn, I don't have to come on on a webcam this morning. I've got my steroid face on today. Oh, good. Please, you're recovering. These things do come and bash us every now and again, don't they? I think the universe seems to have a way of thinking, oh, I'll just slow you down for a little while. But sometimes it can be a good thing. It just gives us a chance to take a step back from the world and decide where we want to go next. Okay, so I don't think we've got any specific questions. Nobody had emailed me in advance of this. Yeah, absolutely right, Lynn. Just makes you a better therapist. Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Yeah, nobody had emailed me in advance. So what I'll do is I'll bring this webinar to a close, and you know, please, it'll come out as a replay. So those picking it up on a replay later on, if you just email me if you do have anything specific, you know, very happy to answer any questions that you have. Lynn, thank you for joining me today, and enjoy your evening, because I know it's evening time where you are now, and I'll look forward to speaking to you all again soon. All right, so take care of yourselves. Nice talking to you. Bye-bye.